What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to part 8 for What If Deku Was Isekai'd into Naruto. As always, if you guys want to be getting the next part of this series, then you guys are definitely going to have to go down below and break the like goal of 12 likes. I'm pretty sure we might hit it. I'm not sure. I have my doubts. 12 likes is a pretty high number to ask for, but I think we might make it. That being said, if you guys go on Twitch and enjoyed today's video, make sure to tell a friend and tell another friend. And with that said, let's get started.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
Starting part 8 with the events of the last part, Kisame and Deku would both essentially be looking at each other, with both of them having these kind of like who's gonna be the first one to attack kind of looks on their face. I don't even know if that's even a look, but let's just go with it, okay? Now look, the way that this would all start off is after Deku would proceed to say that I guess he's just gonna have to go through, Kisame would take his sword out from its sheath as he would then aim it towards the chest of Deku, before he then proceeds to say to back off if he knows what's good for him. Deku, seeing this, will then proceed to push into the sword, saying that he's gonna do what he has to do to protect Sasuke. And Kisame from this point would smile before Samehada would begin draining some of Deku's chakra very slowly. Deku, feeling this, would immediately jump back before then noticing that, that Samehada is actually able to absorb chakra. Deku, seeing this, would be absolutely shocked, and he would then decide that since that sword absorbs chakra, and since he already understands that Kisame is very powerful, he's not going to be playing games. Deku isn't into starting off the battle with 5% of your power and then slowly working your way up. He's not a Saiyan. He is Izuku Midoriya, and he's going to get things done as fast as possible. And so, with the understanding that if he plays his moves wrong or does something wrong in the battle, he's going to lose his life, Deku is not willing to take these risks. And so the first thing that Deku would do is close his eyes as he pretty much jumps back and says Umiyushi, Sage Mode, as he then proceeds to immediately open them once again, and it would then be revealed that he begins to use his Sage Mode abilities. Kisame would smile as he then rushes in at Deku's direction, and Deku at this point would pretty much jump back as Kisame would slice at the air, and Deku would jump forward as he would then land a huge punch on Kisame's face. Kisame would feel the brunt of the blow, and he would be sent back as Kisame would then smile and wipe the blood off of his face before saying, "It's been quite a while before someone's been able to draw blood from me." And Deku would say, "Get used to it, because that's going to be happening the whole battle. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to Sasuke." Kisame would smile once more before then rushing in with his sword, and Deku at this point would decide that he's going to be needing to take out his own sword. Keep in mind, this version of Deku is prepared and has a sword in his back. He hasn't exactly done too much training, so he's not exactly the greatest proficient sword user of all time, but if he's going to be fighting against somebody who has a sword, Deku definitely has to do a little something against that. So he would proceed to take out his own sword and then rush in at Kisame, as both of them would get into a sword clash. At this point, Deku would then decide that this is useless and that he's going to definitely have to just outspeed Kisame. That fighting him with a sword in Kisame's own game is only going to lead to Deku's downfall, and so once he realizes this, he decides that he's going to be doing the best thing possible for his scenario. And so he decides to pretty much start using Sage Mode more and more and more, as he begins getting a little bit stronger and stronger as more nature energy begins to come into him. Deku would then begin using his brunt speed, and he would then end up realizing that Kisame, he's on another level in terms of physical strength and also swordsmanship. Kisame is not playing any games, and Kisame is having a blast. He's already nicked Deku a couple of times and also landed a couple of jutsus on him. So Deku at this point has already been aware of the fact that Kisame is not playing any games whatsoever. Deku at this point will then have Kisame rush at him with his sword as he comes in and tries to do a piercing attack. Deku, seeing this, would decide that he's going to try to counter with a Rasengan. However, midway through doing the actual Rasengan, he would decide to channel a bit of his water chakra through it. And when he does this, he would also shoot some manipulation chakra into it, molding the attack into something a little different. It would pretty much be like a water Rasengan that's molded into a weird like blobby looking shape of that of a shield. Think Naofumi from the Rising Shield Hero, where it's kind of like a bit like a small shield, and he would dodge the attack, completely reflecting Kisame and causing Samehara to fly out of Kisame's hand. At this point, Deku would be shocked and thinking, what was that? Because he kind of did that unintentionally, but with intent at the same time. I really don't know how to explain it. Like, he did it unconsciously, I guess you could say. Like, he wanted to do it, but he did it unconsciously and is not sure how he did it. And the way that he actually did it now is when I'm going to be giving the explanation. The move is pretty much going to be called the Hansha Kogeki. And what that literally means is paper attack in like Japanese. Essentially, because Rasengan is spinning ball attack. Chidori is literally like lightning attack, I'm pretty sure it is in Japanese, right? With the translation, I'm not too sure. But simply by adding water chakra to the Rasengan and also mixing in his chakra molding abilities, he's able to make it kind of like a shield that reflects against attacks. Think similar to rock, paper, scissors. We all know that paper beats rock and scissors beats paper. So it's kind of like in that way where Naruto is rock, Sasuke is scissors, and Deku is paper. And he's kind of going to be having his own new unique jutsu. It's a variant of the Rasengan that is going to be more of a deflective attack, meaning that if Sasuke was to come in with his Chidori, he most likely would end up winning that clash. So whenever Sasuke fights against Deku, Deku will definitely have to whip out the Rasengan, since it's pretty much the only counter to that of the Chidori. However, regardless of that, we would then have Deku and Kisame both pretty much continuing to clash. Kisame, after losing his sword, would decide to crack his neck, as he would then look towards the direction of Deku and say, it's been quite a while since he's used this form. He would then proceed to pretty much start transforming into his more shark-like form, as he would then get have his animalistic features enhanced, and Kisame would blitz at Deku at speeds that Deku has never seen before. Kisame would land 15 consecutive blows on Deku before Deku would cough out blood and be sent flying into a wall. When Deku gets out of the crater, Kisame would be standing atop of him as he would kick him and then shoot a water bullet jutsu straight at Deku's direction, before Deku would immediately dodge out of the way, narrowly missing it, and then deciding that he's going to be losing his life if he doesn't activate that jutsu. Deku, after realizing the severity of the situation, would then proceed to weave two hand signs, as a certain seal would begin glowing on his forehead. The 100 Ceilings jutsu would finally activate, and Deku would then rush in at Kisame's direction, as he would immediately begin outpacing Kisame in every way, shape, and form, dismantling Kisame, making an utter fool of him. He's using Sage Mode in tandem with the 100 Healings Jutsu and using the insane ability that he's already learned before of molding your chakra into your fist for insane power. The same thing that Tsunade and Sakura both do whenever they launch their insanely powerful attacks. Also guys, quick notion that I just really quickly want to say, if you guys are hearing any outside talking or voices in the background, I just quickly want to apologize for that due to the fact that I have family over and there's currently not too much I can do about that. However, I'm hoping that I can edit it out and keep it to a small minimal. That being said, continuing on with the battle, Deku and Kisame would continue fighting back and forth, and by back and forth, I mean Kisame is literally getting tossed around like a rag doll because it's not fair at all. Deku is outclassing Kisame in every shape, way, and form. As soon as the battle started and Deku was able to use this ability, he blitzed at Kisame's direction, smashing a Rasengan straight into the gut of Kisame, causing Kisame to cough blood out, and Kisame would be sent crashing into a wall. However, after that, Deku then grabs Kisame's leg and smashes him into the ground, creating a 6-foot deep crater, and then saying, if you're smart, you'll stay down. Kisame would get up, however, and then try to rush towards the sword Samehara. However, Deku would literally stand atop of the sword with 1 foot over it as he would break it, and Kisame would quite literally look up at Deku's direction before he would then say that he's not playing any games whatsoever. And Kisame would be extremely shocked at what he just heard from Deku, as Deku would say that this fun time is over. He would then proceed to blitz at Kisame before saying, you're done, bud. You were a worthy opponent, before Kisame pretty much closes his eyes and accepts his fate. Deku at this point would channel chakra through his feet, and he would then jump up as he then lands an insane uppercut that quite literally would cause Kisame's head to get blown off of his body. And Kisame's head would roll around about 100 feet away from where he punched it. It would go into the air high as you can possibly think, and then land 100 feet away from the area. And as this was happening, we would then hear an insane jutsu going off in the distance as the clouds became ominously dark, and we would then hear Sasuke say, "Kirin." After that jutsu was pretty much yelled out, Itachi would take out his Susanoo, and Deku, still having his abilities, going through his body, would actually proceed to rush in as he sees, like, the first thing that he sees happening is Sasuke and Itachi. Sasuke would be standing in fear, and Itachi would be slowly skipping towards him as, he pretty much just proceeds to look at Sasuke, give him a smile, and say, "I've always loved you." Sasuke, hearing those final words from his brother, would end up being absolutely shocked, thinking, What do you mean, Itachi?" And before many of you guys begin questioning me on why I even had Itachi do this, keep in mind, this version of Sasuke and Itachi never ended up having the talk about hatred. This version of Sasuke understands that this version, not version of Sasuke, but version of Itachi understands that this Sasuke will not be destroying the village even if he was to find out. Because this Sasuke didn't choose the path of hatred. He chose the path of gaining strength through friendship, through training, through hard work. Not the same way that the OG Sasuke did. And so Itachi would pass away, with Sasuke hearing these words from his brother screaming, "What? Itachi, please wake up!" But he wouldn't. He would be hearing nothing. As Sasuke says, "Itachi, Itachi!" He begins shaking him, saying, "Wake up!" As, he's getting no responses from his brother. And from this point, Sasuke would scream, "No!" But Deku would be watching it from a distance as Sasuke would look at Deku and say, "Heal him! Heal him!" But this is when, out of nowhere, Deku would begin to go towards Itachi's body. As Deku was about to pretty much begin putting his hands on Itachi to try to heal him, Deku would proceed to say, "He's trying." But before he can even finish his sentence, we would suddenly be hearing somebody randomly say a couple of words. In a deep, ominous voice, we would hear, "I'll be taking the last of the Uchiha." Before Deku would then look up and see a strange orange mask and long hair in the distance. This is when Deku, seeing this, he would take one good look at the hole in the mask, seeing the Sharingan. And this is when Deku would have a brief flashback to a moment where he and Tsunade were actually having a conversation about the Uchiha clan and her grandfather, Hashirama Senju. From this moment, Deku would begin immediately sweating bullets, thinking, no, it couldn't be. He would remember back to the conversation he had about Tsunade concerning the ghost of the Uchiha clan and how there's no way it could be him. There's no way, right? Madara's been dead for years. There's no way Madara could be the man standing right before him. And as Deku realizes this, he immediately, through fear, realizing that this is indeed Madara Uchiha, he would hear a couple of words from Sasuke, who would be screaming, "Deku, heal him! Heal him! I need to know what he meant by that! Deku!" But as Deku hears these words coming from, Sasuke's mouth, he would realize that he's terrified. He is genuinely scared of this man because he's reeking this aura of just power. Not only that, but Deku's 100 healings jutsu, it went away and there's no activating it once more. Not only that, but he literally just deactivated Sage mode and he's currently running extremely low on chakra. So if Deku was to try to fight against Madara, it would mean death for sure. Deku would begin trembling, and immediately noticing this, he would pretty much grab Sasuke, who at this moment has his hands on Itachi's body, and he would use the reverse summoning jutsu, as Obito would pretty much grin under his mask, saying, "That boy knew exactly what he had to do." And so from here, he would end up pretty much proceeding to, how do I put this? He would proceed to kind of clap it up, as Zetsu would be right next to him and say, "So, they got away." But Madara, or as we know him, Obito would say, "For now, I'll be taking those eyes and everything to do with Itachi shortly." He would then say, "Contact Pain," As from here, we would then have Deku arriving at the place of the Slug Sages, and when he does arrive, he would pretty much end up getting screamed at by Sasuke, because Sasuke is enraged at the fact that his brother just died in his arms and Deku could have saved him. And Deku, hearing these words from Sasuke's mouth, would grit his teeth as he would say, "I'm sorry," saying, "I know, I'm weak, I'm useless, I couldn't help you, but that was Madara Uchiha. I couldn't do a thing. I ran out of chakra, Sasuke. Not only that, but Itachi's life signature. It was fading fast. By the time I would have gotten to him, he would have already been dead. Sasuke, I'm sorry." Gritting his teeth extremely tight, pretty much about to break them and clenching his fists as hard as possible. Blood would begin coming out of Deku's closed fists, and Sasuke, seeing this show of emotion from Deku, would stop talking before then giving him his angry look and staying silent. From here, he would tell Sasuke that he'll heal him shortly after he, recuperates his chakra, and a couple of hours would go by as Deku would then begin healing Sasuke. After Sasuke is healed, he would then begin performing a couple of jutsus on himself to heal himself up, and this is when they would end up inevitably reverse summoning themselves back into the village with Itachi's eyes in hand, inside of a container that can actually preserve them. Just like the normal ones in Naruto where, they stick the eyes in water or whatever, and the eyes just pretty much stay fine and they just get put in like light bulbs. Yeah. And so this is when Sasuke would pretty much arrive back at the village, not saying a word to Deku, because at this point, Sasuke is still kind of traumatized from the events that just happened. Not only that, but a part of Sasuke is blaming Deku for the death of Itachi. Even though a part of Sasuke knows that it wasn't his fault, he simply needs to find a way to cope with this. So Sasuke would leave to find answers. At this point, when they would arrive with the eyes of Itachi, as well as the body, the higher-ups of the Hidden Leaf Village would actually begin to all pretty much have a discussion saying that they should just get rid of the body of Itachi, that he needs to be disposed of. And Sasuke, hearing these words from the higher-ups, would say, "No, if you want to take my brother, you're gonna have to kill me," as he would then activate his Mangekyo Sharingan and immediately put all of them under a Genjutsu. As from this point, Deku would stand in front of Sasuke saying it's not, that's not necessary. He can go, he understands. Sasuke would take the eyes before then burying his brother in a grave, and then proceeding to, in a grave that isn't in the Hidden Leaf Village, mind you. It's a grave that only Sasuke is going to be knowing the location of. Before then, proceeding to essentially begin going off to find the mysteries of the Uchiha clan, and also finding out anything and everything he could about his brother before those few moments happened where Itachi told him he loved him. Sasuke is confused, he is angry, he is feeling a huge mix of emotions, and had Deku not been there, Sasuke most likely would have lost his sense of self, doing something he would have gone on to regret for the rest of his life. However, Danzo, hearing of the fact that Sasuke now is currently in possession of Itachi's eyes, would actually follow Sasuke with a couple of Anbu members with him, leading to Danzo and the Sasuke fight happening, but under different circumstances. And, Sasuke would pretty much begin going off to find out about the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, finding the stone, realizing a couple of the Uchiha clan secrets, finding out about the coup d'etat and how they were planning to pretty much do a hostile takeover of the village, and how Itachi's actions pretty much ended up saving the village. One of the people who would have told them these things would have been Danzo, because as soon as Sasuke pretty much ended up finding about the tablet and the EMS and how you have to take your brother's eyes, Danzo would have actually ended up arriving, clapping at Sasuke and saying, your brother was a great shinobi, and those eyes of his, they will be mine. I'll do you the courtesy of asking any questions about him before I kill you. And Sasuke would be angry, but he would decide to take this chance to pretty much ask Danzo questions about his brother, finding out the truth about Itachi Uchiha through Danzo. After finding this out, Sasuke would be enraged at the fact that Danzo had something to do with the apparent death of his brother Itachi Uchiha. And once he finds that out, they would end up having a battle really, really similar to canon, with Sasuke still at the end of everything, using his Sharingan to pretty much fool Danzo into thinking he has one last Kodo Matsukami. No, not Kodo Matsukami, but the reversal jutsu that he can do with the Sharingan. As Danzo would pretty much end up committing seppuku, and after that, we would end up having Sasuke winning the battle, pretty much losing a huge portion of his sight. His vision would now be blurry, not quite blind, but now Sasuke is going to be needing somebody to implant his brother's eyes. And now, at this point, Deku would have reported the mission back to Tsunade, telling her about the events that took place, with Tsunade proceeding to tell Deku that she understands his worries and how he wants to get stronger. Deku would end up asking Tsunade if there's anything at all she has left to teach him. He's gonna do everything to become stronger and stop being a coward, because that battle made Deku realize that he's still that scared little boy that he once was. And in that moment of desperation, being in front of Madara Uchiha, Deku felt true terror, the likes that he had never felt before. He felt weak, he felt useless, and Deku, most of all, felt like the same scared little kid that he once was. Tsunade, hearing these words come out of Deku's mouth, would tell him that there is one thing that he could do, beginning to tell Deku about a certain trident that is actually in the land of the whirlpool, telling him about how a certain somebody used to talk to her about it all the time. Dawn, her once lover, began talking about her about this trident in the land of the whirlpool and how it was his, his mission to find it. That it was once rumored that this was one of the legendary weapons that was lost through time. A legendary trident that belonged to the leader of the Uzumaki clan, Ashina's trident. Like for part 9.